I'm an ER janitor. I clean the entire ER including the rooms and often communicate with the nursing staff about the sometimes crazy patients. Ask me anything. I work for a small ER in Ohio, USA. I clean the entire ER including the rooms, lobby, bathrooms, triage area, and squad break room. I often converse with the nursing staff about our patients and hear all of the crazy stories. We've had patients come in for all kinds of weird things. Ask me anything. What do you reckon is best to clean out bloodstains? I'm asking for a friend. Try peroxide. We don't have very many stainable surfaces in our ER other than the curtains. Be sure to clean the blood up as soon as possible. ER nurse here. If it's fresh, run it under cold water, not hot. The heat seems to set it. Heparinized saline is perfect for getting blood out of scrubs. Point or crush an aspirin and apply with cold water. As a nurse, what's one thing I could do to make your job easier? If you aren't already, treat environmental services with respect. We are people. EVS keeps hospitals running. I'm so sick of being treated like shit simply because I work in this department. We are important. We are necessary. We work very hard and are people that deserve respect, just as we respect you. Most funny story on the job. We had a gay African man come into our ER with one half of an nunchuck lodged in his anus so far up that he couldn't get it out by himself. I guess he broke the chain off and used the one half as a deal though and went a bit too far up. We couldn't get it out for him, so we transferred him to an OR at a nearby hospital for surgery to have it removed. Before he left, he asked a nurse, "What do I tell my parents?" The nurse's response? "Tell them you were attacked by a ninja." Also, another one I recall is when a group of 4 teenagers, 2 boys, 2 girls, came in all at once for an STD test. Apparently the 4 teenagers and one other boy were engaged in an orgy of some kind, and after the orgy the 5th kid felt it necessary to mention that he had an STD. It's not necessarily super funny on its face, but I like to think that the 5th kid just casually got up after they all finished, told them about his STD, dropped the mic, and walked out like it was nothing. What is harder to clean up, brains or blood? Luckily, I've never had to deal with any massive amount of brains. Blood is surprisingly easy to deal with, as long as there aren't any clots and you have a strong stomach. Massive amounts of brain to imply that you've had to deal with a little bit of brain? How does one just lose a little bit of their brain, other than reading Reddit? Through a gunshot wound to the head. Brains and such fall out. Not the entire brain, but bits of it. What is the weirdest story you have? We once had a woman who used a lamp to masturbate, and the light bulb broke inside of her vajayjay. She came to our facility briefly, but was transferred out to another hospital for surgery shortly after. I don't recall exactly, but I'm sure she was on drugs. She loved lamp. Have you ever seen other staff do something they shouldn't be doing? Sex maybe, during work hours? We have an infusion unit that is for cancer patients to get chemotherapy. Outside of operating hours, 8 to 6, the doors are locked, and the only person who can swipe to get into the area is the security officer. Even the EV staff, janitors, do not have access to this area. I've caught security sneaking our respiratory tech back into that area multiple times. I can't say for sure that they're having sex, but every time they do it, they are in there for upwards of an hour. To clarify, we are a super small facility and our RT, respiratory tech, almost never has any work to do on slow nights. Security is always doing rounds of the building, so when both of them disappear, nobody notices. I noticed. Grossest thing you've had to clean up? The grossest thing I personally have had to deal with was a few months back when a person used his bare hands to rub his feces all over the public bathroom, and I didn't find it until hours after he had done it. I work 3rd shift and often don't check these particular bathrooms until later in my shift. The feces were crusty and dry, and I had to scrub for over an hour. Edit. I've dealt with large pools of blood and vomit, but for some reason feces bothers me far more. So I consider this stall to be my worst moment. Why do people smear poop all over the walls? It makes no sense. They have get their hands down in there. Obviously no one likes it. It is this giant lose-lose, but regardless of culture it is a thing. Why? I feel like someone should get a PhD paper out of answering this mystery. This particular individual was upset that the doctor refused to give him pain meds. He was a drug seeker. How did you get this job? Through a temp agency that a friend of a friend told me about. It's not exactly a hard job to get. I've worked there for 2 years now, and the pay is about 11.25 per after shift differential. There is no hazard pay. With all the bodily fluids you encounter on a daily basis, do they at least give you a hazmat suit? We get gloves, which offer almost zero protection if you encounter a needle. Yep, I've had several close calls with needles before due to staff leaving them laying around in beds and chairs. I've been lucky so far, but there have been several others in my department who haven't been so lucky. Getting stuck is one of my biggest fears. We have a lot of nasty people come through our ER. What's the most disgusting thing you've smelled? Gastrointestinal bleed. Ugh. Between the staff and the patients, how much sex goes down in an ER? Between the staff and the patients? None. Making sexual advancements at the patients is strictly forbidden at our facility and nobody wants to lose their job. We do have a doctor who orders a pelvic exam on just about every good looking woman who walks through the ER, though, regardless of why she is there. It's kind of a running gag around the nurses that pretty women can come in for something like an earache and get a pelvic exam. If everyone knows it, how is he still working there? He would probably find a way to justify his orders for the pelvic exams if anybody questioned it, so people just sit back and quietly judge. One of my co-workers once called me to make sure the doctor wasn't working before bringing his girlfriend in for an ER visit. If you could swap jobs with anyone else you work with for a week or a day, who would it be and why? My boss. The guy is a giant asshole, and I'm sure the staff could use a week-long break. Obligatory naked nurses? I'm third shift. You wouldn't want to see any of the nurses I work with naked. Unless 60-year-old women are kinda your thing. They aren't, but we take what we can get, am I right? Every hole's a goal. How long have you had this job? What motivates you to get up and go to work each day? How does the staff treat you? 2 years. I have a beautiful 3-year-old daughter that I need to support. Staff treats me so-so. It's a 50 to 50 fold between being looked down on and being treated as an equal. It's on a person by person basis. How do you feel about your health coverage, and how does it compare to what other doctors/nurses are offered? My health coverage is non-existent. I live paycheck to paycheck and have no medical coverage whatsoever. Our hospital does offer medical, but it's pretty expensive, and I just can't afford it. Me and my daughter were both at one point on a federal medical plan, but they dropped me due to making too much money. Luckily, my daughter is still covered. How old are you? What are your hobbies? 20 years old. I'm a computer kind of guy. Big fan of video games and tech. I spend most of my spare time with my daughter/girlfriend or on Reddit. Do you ever look at the patient's charts and try to figure out a diagnosis for fun? Charts aren't something I get to look at. They're all computerized at our facility. That said, if a nurse lets me know why somebody is there, I'll often try to determine what they have. They often have I'm a drug seeker-itis. Do you clean ambulances for side cash? Nope. Just the ER, not sure who cleans the EMS and PTS vehicles. We are a standalone ER facility, so that probably happens at a bigger hospital. What are your feelings for the job? Like it? Hate it? Do you wish you were doing something else? If so, what? The job itself is fine. I've got no problem cleaning blood and such, but I'm underpaid, and I feel like the nurses I work around are in it strictly for the money, and not because they want to help people with their medical issues. It's a mixed bag. Have you ever had to clean up after a labor and delivery? The doctors at our facility will do everything in their power to avoid birthing children at our ER facility. The survival rate of the babies at our facility are surprisingly low. We aren't necessarily very well prepared to deliver children. What was it like your first time working there? Is there a strange story to go with it? The very first day I worked the ER, we had a psych patient, a female, who was full-blown crazy. She kept screaming, "Do you want to duck me, vermin?" at the security guard. I knew it was going to be an interesting place to work after that. Was it hard to get a job? When I got the job I had been unemployed for 1.5 years, and the economy was bad. So, in a way, yes. but not because the qualifications were high. Anybody can be an ER janitor with just an 8th grade education and an application. It's not something you need to go to school for. What do you tend to use, neutral disinfectants or quark disinfectants more often? We use Virex to disinfect all surfaces that aren't the floor. We use a neutral cleaner on the floor. What happens to the blood and guts once you put it in the trash? I assume it's not put in normal dumpsters. We put all blood and bodily fluids into a red BO bag. This red BO bag goes into a container and taken to a specific room where all of the containers are picked up twice a week. I suppose they are burned or something. What's your HIPAA policy? Ignored, apparently. You'd be surprised at how quickly the nurses will tell you about the patients and what they are being seen for despite knowing it goes against HIPAA. What is the most disturbing thing you found while you are cleaning? Pieces of skin that had come off of the patient.